We interrupted you when you were making the trip
Right,
back
and you were
to
making
decide about whether to stay or not.
Yeah. So, anyhow, when we got back, dejected.
Right. You said you were asking yourselves why are we doing this?
Why had we done it? And we were, it was a very difficult time. And Marissa's mother had died while we were in Jerusalem. She died during Pesach of that year. And Marissa's father was alone in Grand Rapids with strangers taking care of him. And this is what we were coming back to and trying to think through how we should make arrangements for his father. And then during the course of that year, my mother died, and so many things were happening, and especially the problem with the children who hated us because we took them away from what they loved so much. They thought they'd never forgive us for taking them away. They would not tell their companions that they were coming back to the States, ashamed, because in those days, if you went away, you were considered a traitor to Jerusalem. And how could they tell the Chaverim in school? And Davida was able to keep this a secret from her two close friends. Her two close friends, one was Rotenstrach's daughter, Professor Rotenstrach.
Oh, he was the
President of the university.
Yeah.
When we were there.
When we were there.
Yeah.
President?
Or
Was he
dean.
really?
Yes, he was.
Maybe he was a dean or something.
The rector.
Rector? Well, maybe he was rector.
Anyway, it was his job.
So, these two girls were Davida's closest friends, and she hadn't told them up to the last minute. And then came home from school one day, shortly before we were leaving, and there in front of our door was the big lift, which was to be loaded for returning, and we went into a furnished apartment, but we were taking back a lot of stuff. That table that you see over there in the corner, for example, that was hand carved by the wife of the Swiss consul, and so many things that
You want to show it now?
all over my place here. You'll see things that were the Swiss consul. He was, the morning he was to turn the keys over to us, he, see, it's beautiful, just a beautiful table. She had hand carved it, and he was, the morning that they were to turn the keys over to us, he was sitting in the corner of the living room, to be the living room, his living room, and there's a shelf and all kinds of antiques, and he was waiting for the auctioneer to come to take it off his hands. And Marie said, "The auctioneer, won't you sell it to me?" He said, "I'd be glad to." So the things we bought, I must have 10 vases like that one. Copper vases that you see all over the place. And that shelf with all those antique things. Some of them were pieces that were excavated on that second shelf. You see them? Those were excavated pieces, and anyhow, these were the things that were to go into the lift. And what I could remember was that Davida was so upset when she saw that lift, and then her little friend was with her.
Secret was
She
out.
went into her bedroom and closed the door, and she just screamed with pain. She just screamed with pain. It was just awful, just awful. We yanked her away from what she loved, and well, they had a very difficult time
Coming back.
adjusting here, and we put them into the lab school because the lab school was famous for working with foreign students, And their Hebrew was so solid that they thought in Hebrew. They thought in Hebrew, so that English was the second language that they worked with. And there were some cruel things that happened at school at the time, like whenever she came home the first day and the teacher was trying to get the level of the background of the kids in the class. And so that she had a spelling bee and a captain of each side. And the captain was supposed to choose who would be in his team. And nobody took Davida. And they said was, she can't even speak English. And so it was a very difficult time of adjustment. And but then, once they got into it and had made their friends, then they wanted to be more American than the rest of them. And so no way that we could think about yanking them out again. And so the next thing we knew was that we were back to stay.
Yeah.
And I had a difficult time of adjusting too. People that surrounded us, there were just their program of living was so different from what we knew about the States. The informality there. You just had, since everybody didn't have a telephone, you just came to visit, you know. And I didn't want to accept any invitations for dinners and stuff because it meant that I would have to reciprocate, and I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't want to, just didn't want to get resettled here. But again, you know, once you're in it, you just do. And then Maurice got re-involved in Hello here, and we came back in September
55.
55.
Yeah.
September of 55.
Did you come to this apartment?
No, that's when we were looking for a place to live, and Dan Borston had heard that Canon Bell, who lived on the second floor at 1321 East 56th, and the Episcopal Council owned that apartment, and Canon Bell was their minister. And Canon Bell, it wasn't big enough for Canon Bell, so the place was going to be rentable. So Dan Burston heard about it and he grabbed it for us. You know, it's very nice to have friends who do things like that for you, and especially at a time when it was difficult to find a place. And so that's, and our landlord then was a fellow by the name of, and I had thought of this name for Wilbur Kurtz, who was Katz, and he became an Episcopalian. And his name became Kurtz. And he was our landlord. And he had instructed us that we were not to arrange for any repairs or anything like that without permission. And he would come to examine it first to see if he could fix it, so that they wouldn't have the expense of it. So that's where we lived, on the second floor, 1321 East 56th. And it was a pleasant enough place.